Scotty. Oh.
Picard. And we're live. Welcome to the Noah's Nest Parsha weekly Parsha reading. I'm James, the TheIdolSmasher here on YouTube and Google+. This is a Parsha reading, weekly Parsha reading. And Parsha is a section of the Torah, the first 5 books of Moses in the Bible, and it's broken up into weekly readings. Last weekend began, or last week was last week was Pesach. So we read a double Parsha tonight. We'll be going from Leviticus, or Vayikra. This will be chapter 12 when we go through 1533 for both Parshas. Now, we'll read it real quick for posterity to get it out there. We're just going to read through it, and then we'll go lesson by lesson. We'll get into commentary. We'll share commentary, and that's how we do it. So, if you want to read along before we get to the commentary, which is what a majority of this Hangout is all about, once again, it is Vayikra 12 or Leviticus chapter 12. We'll go from there all the way through chapter 15, 33. And Ermine, Amy, and Reuven, our esteemed producer and co-host. He's the one responsible for Noah's Nest and the Noachide Nexus as well. Involved in that as well. Are there any questions before we begin? Let's check that Q&A. And the Q&A is dry as a bone. Okay. Y'all ready?
Yep.
All right. Don't wait a minute here. Reuven says in the chat. Reuven is a typer, not a talker, by the way. If this is your first time, don't mix original series and Next Generation, Ermine, or this would quickly become a Star Trek hangout.
Okay.
Geek. I saw the second Star Wars trailer, and I was in my office going.
Yeah, everyone's excited.
And his voice comes from way out in the production room. I hear the laughter of geekdom out there. Okay, back to what we're here for. Let's do this. Chapter 12, Leviticus. Hashem spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the children of Israel, saying, when a woman conceives and gives birth to a male, she shall be contaminated for a 7-day period, as during the days of her separation in infirmity shall she be contaminated. On the 8th day, the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised. For 33 days she shall remain in blood of purity. She may not touch anything sacred, and she may not shall not enter the sanctuary until the completion of her days of purity. If she gives birth to a female, she shall be contaminated for 2 weeks, as during her separation, and for 66 days she shall remain in blood of purity. Upon the completion of the days of her purity, for a son or a daughter, she shall bring a sheep with its first year for an elevation offering, and a young dove or a turtle dove for a sin offering, to the entrance of the tent of meeting, to the Kohen. He shall offer it before Hashem and atone for her, and she becomes purified from the source of her blood. This is the law of one who gives birth to a male or female. But if she cannot afford a sheep, then she shall take 2 turtle doves or 2 young doves for an elevation offering and 1 for a sin offering, and the Kohen shall place atonement for her, and she shall become purified. Chapter 13. Hashem spoke to Moses and to Aaron, saying, if a person will have on the skin of his flesh asias, or sapachs, or abahares, and it will become a tsaras, affliction on the skin of his flesh, he shall be brought to Aaron the Kohen, or to one of his sons, the Kohanim. The Kohen shall look at the affliction of the skin of his flesh. If hair in the affliction has changed to white, and the affliction's appearance is deeper than the skin of the flesh, it is a tsaras affliction. The Kohen shall look at it and declare him contaminated. Give me a second. If it is white, baharis of the skin, of his flesh, and its appearance is not deeper than the skin, and the hair has not changed to white, then the Kohen shall quarantine the affliction for a 7-day period. The Kohen shall look at it on the 7th day, and behold, the affliction retained its color, and the affliction did not spread on the skin. Then the Kohen shall quarantine it for a second 7-day period. The Kohen shall look at it again on the 7th day, and behold, if the affliction has dimmed and the affliction has not spread on the skin, then the Kohen shall declare him pure. It is a mispachas. He shall immerse his garments and become pure. But if the mispachas should spread on the skin after it had been shown to the Kohen for its purification, it shall be shown to the Kohen again. The Kohen shall look, and behold, the mispachas has spread on the skin. The Kohen shall declare him contaminated. It is tzaras. If a tzaras affliction will be in a person, he shall be brought before the Kohen. The Kohen shall look, and behold, it is a white zias on the skin, and it has changed hair to white, or there is healthy live flesh within that zias. It is an old tzaras in the skin of the flesh, and the Kohen shall declare him contaminated. He shall not quarantine it, for it is contaminated. If the tzaras will erupt on the skin, and the tzaras will cover the entire skin of the affliction, from his head to his feet, wherever the eyes of the Kohen can see, the Kohen shall look, and behold, the affliction has covered his entire flesh. Then he shall declare the affliction to be pure. Having turned completely white, it is pure. On the day healthy flesh appears in it, it shall be contaminated. The Kohen shall look at the healthy flesh and declare it contaminated. The healthy flesh is contaminated, it is tzaras. But if the healthy flesh changes again and turns white, he shall come to the Kohen. The Kohen shall look at it, and behold, the affliction has changed to white. The Kohen shall declare the affliction pure. It is pure. If flesh will have an inflammation on its skin, and it will have healed, and on the place of the inflammation there will be a white zias or a white bahares, streaked with red, it shall be shown to the Kohen. The Kohen shall look, and behold, its appearance is lower than the skin, and its hair is turned white. The Kohen shall declare him contaminated. It is a tzaras, affliction that erupted on the inflammation. But if the Kohen looks at it, and behold, there is no white hair in it, and it is not lower than the skin, and it is dim, the Kohen shall quarantine it for a 7-day period. If it spreads on the skin, the Kohen shall declare him contaminated. It is an affliction. But if the bahares remains in its place without spreading, it is the scarring of the inflammation. The Kohen shall declare him pure. If flesh will have a burn from fire on its skin, and the healed skin of the burn is a white bahares, and it is streaked with red, or is all white, the Kohen shall look, and behold, hair has turned white in the bahares, and its appearance is deeper than the skin. It is tzaras and erupted on the burn. The Kohen shall declare him contaminated. It is a tzaras affliction. And if the Kohen looks at it, and behold, there is no white hair in the bahares, and it is not lower than the skin, and it is dim, the Kohen shall quarantine him for a 7-day period. The Kohen shall look at it on the 7th day. If it has spread on the skin, the Kohen shall declare him contaminated. It is a tzaras affliction. If it is a bahares, if the bahares remains in its place, not spreading on the skin, and it is dim, it is a cease of the burn, and the Kohen shall declare him pure, for it is the scarring of the inflammation. A man or a woman in whom there will be an affliction on the scalp or in the beard, the Kohen shall look at the affliction, and behold, its appearance is deeper than the skin, and within it is weak golden hair. The Kohen shall declare him contaminated. It is a Nesek, a tsaris of the head or the beard. But if the Kohen looks at the Nesek affliction, and behold, its appearance is not deeper than the skin, but there is no dark hair within it, the Kohen shall quarantine the Nesek affliction for 7 days. The Kohen shall look at the affliction on the 7th day, and behold, the Nesek had not spread, and no golden hair was in it, and the appearance of the Nesek is not deeper than the skin. Then he shall shave himself, but he shall not shave the Nesek, and the Kohen shall quarantine the Nesek for a 7-day period. The Kohen shall look at the Nesek on the 7th day, and behold, the Nesek had not spread on the skin, and its appearance is not deeper than the skin. The Kohen shall declare him pure, and he shall immerse his clothing, and he is pure. But if the Nesek shall spread on the skin after he has been declared pure, the Kohen shall look at it, and behold, the Nesek has spread on the skin. The Kohen need not examine it for a golden hair, it is contaminated. But if the Nesek had retained its appearance, and dark hair had sprouted in it, the Nesek has healed. It is pure. The Kohen shall declare it pure. If a man or a woman has spots in the skin of their flesh, white spots, the Kohen shall look, and behold, on the skin of their flesh are dim white spots. It is a bohak that has erupted on the skin. It is pure. If the hair of a man's head falls out, he is bald, and the back of the head, he is pure. And if his hair falls out toward the front of his head, and he is frontally bald, he is pure. And if the posterior or frontal baldness, there shall be a white affliction streaked with red. It is an eruption of tsaras on his posterior or frontal baldness. The Kohen shall look at it, and behold, there is a seus affliction that is white streaked with red, and in his posterior or frontal baldness, like the appearance of tsaras on the skin of the flesh. He is a person with tsaras, he is contaminated. The Kohen shall declare him contaminated. His affliction is upon his head. And the person with tsaras in whom there is the affliction, his garments shall be rent, the hair of his head shall be unshorn, and he shall cloak himself up to his lips. He is to call out contaminated, contaminated. All the days that the affliction is upon him shall remain contaminated. He is contaminated. He shall dwell in isolation. His dwelling shall be outside the camp. If there shall be a tsaras affliction in a garment, in a woolen garment or a linen garment, or in the warp or the woof of the linen or the wool, or in leather, or in anything fashioned in leather, and the affliction shall be deep green or deep red in the garment or the leather or the warp or the woof, or in any leather utensil, it is a tsaras affliction, and it shall be shown to the Kohen. And the Kohen shall look at the affliction, and he shall quarantine the affliction for a 7-day period. He shall look at the affliction on the 7th day. If the affliction has spread in the garment, or in the warp, or in the woof, or in the leather, for whatever purpose the leather has been fashioned, the affliction is a malignant tsaras. It is contaminated. He shall burn the garment, or the warp, or the woof, or the wool, or the linen, or any leather utensil in which the affliction may be, for it is a malignant tsaras. It shall be burned in fire. But if the Kohen shall look, and behold, the affliction had not spread in the garment, or the warp, or the woof, or in any leather utensil, the Kohen shall command, and they shall wash the area of the affliction, and he shall quarantine it for a second 7-day period. The Kohen shall look after the affliction has been washed, and behold, the affliction has not changed its color, and the affliction has not spread. It is contaminated. You shall burn it in the fire. It is a penetrating affliction in its worn garment, or in his new garment. But if the Kohen shall look, and behold, the affliction grew dimmer after it was washed, he shall rip it from the garment, or from the leather, or from the warp, or from the woof. If it appears again in the garment, or in the warp, or in the woof, or in any leather utensil, it is an eruption. You shall burn it in the fire, that which contains the affliction. But if the garment, or the warp, or the woof, or any leather utensil had been washed, and then the affliction left them, it shall be immersed again, and it shall become pure. This is the law of the tsaras affliction, a garment of wool and linen, or the warp, or the woof, or any leather utensil, to declare it pure, or to declare it contaminated.
Great job.
Thank you. You have no taste.
Stop.
All right.
That's great.
Let's just take the Parsha as it is, and we'll move along.
Okay.
After the laws of Tuma that results from dead animals, the Torah turns to Tuma that emanates from human beings. The first subject to be discussed is that of a woman who gives birth, because that is the beginning of life and therefore the start of the Tuma process. I'm going to jump into this commentary because I have to know myself why this is considered a contamination.
What?
Childbirth and purification.
Oh gosh, I just assumed because of all the blood. I actually appreciate it more than anything because it actually gives us a chance to heal. While you're looking it up anyway, I'll just keep talking. Gives us a chance to heal after giving birth, because sometimes some religions, they just get to it right after. Okay, so you understand what I'm saying. I didn't have to spell it out any further, yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right, and that, and I didn't know just how intense that was until our baby. I didn't
Yeah.
realize exactly what a woman was going through that whole time. I figured it was just stitches healing, and it's not. There's a lot to it.
Yeah.
All right. The creation of human life is the most sublime phenomenon in the universe. By bringing it into being, man and woman become partners with God, who gives a soul to their offspring. But this new life begins with tuma, a spiritual impurity to show people that the mere fact of life is not enough. Life must be a tool for the service of God. Otherwise, it is nothing. After this period of contamination, the new mother begins her cleansing process, culminating in the bringing of an offspring. Before she brings it, she cleanses herself of the contamination, but she still may not consume sacrificial meat or teruma, because the mere absence of contamination is not yet the fulfillment of man's goal. Human aspiration must rise higher than the elimination of the negative. It must strive for the positive achievement. One is not completely cleansed until one has come to the resting place of God's presence with an offering that represents atonement for the past and dedication for the future. Nowadays it is customary, as soon as the new mother feels well enough to leave home, she goes to a synagogue and hears Kedusha, or a similar part of the service. It is also customary that after the 40 or 80 days when she would bring her offering, her husband is called to the Torah as a symbolic representation of the offerings described in this chapter. These offerings and rituals symbolize that birth inaugurates the beginning of the ongoing privilege of raising a newborn child to a life of dedication and holiness that will enable God to say to the children and his parents, "You fulfill the purpose of the entire work of creation." Which is quite a thing to hear.
Well, it's so interesting for me because I don't know any other religion that has medicine in good medicine back then, well, and starting from birth all the way till where you read later, um, I just find that really profound. There's a cleanliness to things that wasn't the case back at this time. Anyway.
That's true. Yeah, I'm trying to think of. I can't think of anybody who, or any other religion that takes this much care in being clean. You know, washing the hands is very, very, very prevalent in Judaism.
Right.
Now we need to get into all these the Hebrew phrases that we're talking about. Tsaras is what they call it, leprosy, but it's not leprosy like the
Yeah.
uh, armadillo gets. It's a spiritual uncleanliness that's so powerful it literally shows up on your skin.
Wow.
And as we see, we have leprosy of clothing,
Mm-hmm.
but also one of the house too, which we'll get to. And we'll get to that. For hundreds of years, the popular translation of tsaras has been leprosy, and it was commonly accepted that prevention of the disease's spread was the reason for the quarantine of a suspected victim of tsaras and the exclusion from camp of a confirmed Metzora, the person smitten with a malady. Rabbi Hirsch demonstrates at length and conclusively that both of these notions are completely erroneous. Very briefly, he shows that the symptoms of tsaras, as outlined in our Sidra, our reading, are far different from those of leprosy. Furthermore, if the reason for the Metzora's contaminant is to prevent contagion, then some of the laws would be ludicrous. For example, if the malady covers the victim's entire body, he is not tameh. But if the skin begins to heal, he becomes tameh. In the case of a house that is afflicted, which we'll get to in the next Parsha, the Torah prescribes that before the house is proclaimed tameh, all its contents should be removed because they would become contaminated if they were left inside at the time of the pronouncement. It's rather an embarrassing process, you know, for your neighbors to see your clothes, everything on your lawn. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I've heard stories. But if it were a danger of contagion, it would be irrational for the afflicted household items to be excluded from the quarantine. In perhaps the most telling example, the Talmud teaches that if the symptoms of tsaras appear on a newlywed or during a festival season, the Kohen does not examine the affliction or declare it to be tameh in order not to interfere with the celebration. But if the purpose of these laws was to prevent the spread of a disease, it would be absolutely imperative to enforce the laws at times of great overcrowding and mingling. From the Jewish perspective. Clearly, as the sages teach, tsaras is not a bodily disease, but the physical manifestation of a spiritual, malaise, a punishment designed to show the malefactor that he must mend his ways. The primary cause of tsaras is the sin of slander. As the sages say, the word Matzra. See, now I can't read Hebrew. Every time I try to read it, when I'm not here, I do much better. To say one is a contradiction of the other. One who spreads slander. That's from Moroccan 15b. Similarly, the sages teach that the affliction is a punishment for the sins of bloodshed, false oaths, sexual immorality, pride, robbery, and selfishness. The pattern that emerges is that it is a divine retribution for the offender's failure to feel the needs and share the hurt of others. God rebukes this antisocial behavior by isolating him from society so that he can experience the pain he has imposed on others and heal himself through repentance.
Did you see what Reuven wrote earlier? The terms, I can't pronounce any of this.
Saith. Oh, okay. So the way you spell it would be Saith. There's okay. Well, that makes more sense. The Saith and Bahareth are the names of two major lesions in the term approach. In the term Sapachath refers to the categories related to these two major lesions. And the one major lesion, namely Bahareth, is whiter than the other. Saith. Thank you, Reuven.
Is this something that we see today?
I believe so. I think what we don't see today is the affliction of the house. That can only happen apparently in the land of Israel. Like the whole land, so not just the state, but that whole chunk. But yeah, I believe so. I believe, the symptoms are a white patch on the skin, at least the size of a large bean, about 3/4 inch square. Two basic shades of white. Each of the two has a secondary color, making a total of 4 shades. Only a Kohen is authorized by the Torah to diagnose a tsaras and pronounce the malady as such. Unless a Kohen makes this pronouncement, none of these laws apply. Even though a multitude of scholars and Kohanim recognize it as such. First, the Torah describes the basic forms of tsaras and how all 4 of them are determined to be tameh. Then the Torah goes on to discuss the characteristics that tend to appear in one or another category of tsaras. So the laws don't even apply. Okay. I don't know if this is also just for Israel. Or is this for any man? No, this is only, let's see.
It would seem to me to be only for Israel.
But then in 13, if a person shall have on his skin. It doesn't say if you, it's a different person. So that could be anybody. See, this is the whiteness of a natural wool.
It's so profound because I can't imagine people with these skin so dark having white spots, like browner, even tan colored skin. That must really stand out.
Yeah, I bet. I was being so selfish with that, with the picture in my mind. Or self-centered. Let's see. Whiteness of natural wool. A sapachas is not a new kind of tsaras, but a generic word that refers to a secondary category. Each of the primary colors mentioned in the verse, sais, and bahares, as a subdivision which is slightly darker than the parent, but is also an indication of contamination. These are the two kinds of sapach. One is the Sapachas. One is the color of an egg membrane and is slightly darker than a sais. The second is the color of chalk and is slightly darker than a bahares. Thus, there are two major categories of tsaras. Each one has a subcategory. Okay. If two dark hairs is all it takes, going deeper than the skin, that literally means, yeah, it appears below the skin, like light would be through a filter.
Hmm.
Okay, quarantining the affliction. Literally, that means a person must remain in a room for the entire week. Others hold that a person is not quarantined, rather the Kohen isolates the suspect patch of the skin from the rest of the victim's body by drawing a line around it so that he will be able to tell at a glance whether or not the affliction became larger during the next 7 days. That's what I love about Judaism, you know.
What?
Well, when you, in an explanation in one Chumash about that one verse or that one phrase, shall quarantine the affliction, one says must remain in a room for the entire week. Literally
Mm-hmm.
isolate the person. That's Rashi. And then Tuor Rosh say that he isolates just that part of the skin with a marker to judge
I
its size in a week.
I thought in the scripture it said isolate for a week.
Well, when he makes this specific quarantine the affliction,
Mm-hmm.
that's what they're talking about. These two different.
Perspectives, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how you quarantine a part of your body for a week. I feel like you have to do the whole thing.
Yeah.
But what do I know?
You get all kinds of you get all kinds of.
Interpretations, yeah.
They're all right. And at least they don't contradict here. But, let's see. Okay. An old saras, obviously, that makes sense what that is. Notwithstanding the surface appearance of improving health, there is an old festering saras underneath the apparently healthy skin. Any for the purpose of the passage we were reading tonight, any wound to the flesh, whether it's due to illness or a blow, is known as an inflammation. So if the flesh will have an inflammation on its skin, and will have healed. As long as it's not healed and is oozing, it is an inflammation.
Mm.
It cannot be judged ad saras either, if it's still oozing. Even if it may have some of the symptoms, once it is completely healed, it is treated like the afflictions described above. The verses below discuss the intermediate stage when the wound has begun to heal and a thin layer of skin is formed over it. Now, on verse 29 through 39, Saras of the scalp or beard is different from any of those that were described above. The essence of the first affliction in this passage, which is known as Nesek, is that it causes a loss of hair in the middle of the scalp or the beard. If the baldness appears in front or back of the head, the laws are different and are found below in verses 40 through 43. The bald spot must be at least the size of a gris and be completely surrounded by hair. The color of the patch is immaterial and no discoloration of the skin is necessary, according to the consensus of commentators. The appearance of white hairs is not a proof of contamination in this case. The only way these parts of the body can be host to tsaras is if they have a hair loss and have symptoms given in this passage. The Nesek can have 2 quarantine periods, and it can have 2 proofs of contamination: the emergence of short golden hairs or a spread of the affliction.
So these priests are amazing because they're not just spreading the word, they're also doctors.
Yes, ma'am.
Amazing.
Even today, you have to have, medical school training to be a moil, to do the circumcisions.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Hope so.
And also a sign of contamination is golden hair. Scalp or the beard. If it's on the skin, it turns white. If it's on the beard or the head, it turns golden. Again, what separates baldness, there's a commentary from verse 44 where he said, he is a person with tsaras. He is contaminated. The Kohen shall declare him contaminated. His affliction is upon his head. In all previous cases, the Torah uses the pronoun only. Here the Torah speaks of the person. When the merciful God punishes a person, he prefers to do so in a way that will not cause him public humiliation. Let the sinner know and repent, but let he not be humiliated unnecessarily. This is indicated by the Torah's reference to him rather than the person with tsaras. The tsaras of baldness is different. Its location is such that everyone sees the affliction and knows that God has withheld his mercy from the sinner. Apparently he has sinned in a grievous manner, as is implied by the Torah's description of him as a person with tsaras. He. Woolen garments or linen garments. All garments are useful implements to these materials, including such items as curtains and sails. These materials became tameh only if they have not been dyed, and only if they are owned by Jews. The warp consists of the threads that run across the length of the fabric. The warp consists of the threads that are crisscrossed at right angles through the warp. You learn.
Stuff starts to make sense, huh?
Yes. By speaking of the warp and woof, W-O-O-F, which are not yet a finished fabric, but are ready to be woven into one. The Torah teaches that finished threads of wool and linen, except tzaras. Huh. This Masoretic note, which I don't know where that's at, never mind. There are 67 verses in the Sidra, numerically corresponding with the mnemonic Benai, or Benay, her children. This alludes to the beginning of the Sidra, which deals with a woman who gives birth, since the Hebrew word for child, ben, is derived from Benay, to build, or Benah, I don't know. There's no, I don't have the, anyway, it alludes to the lesson that children are the builders of the future. Interesting. Welcome, Frank. Good to have you here. You're just in time for Parsha Part 2.
Shalom.
Shalom. Is it 14 to 15? Yeah, 14 through 15.
Yeah. Do you want me to read anything?
Big hunk of reading. If you would like to, that'd be fine with me.
All right.
Awesome.
14, Leviticus chapter 14. Here's where I'm reading from, Frank, if you want to.
She's got
I can also share my screen.
Ermine's got the best.
Thank you.
And the Lord spoke unto Moses, saying, This shall be the law of the leper in the day of his cleansing. He shall be brought unto the priest. And the priest shall go forth out of the camp, and the priest shall look, and behold, if the plague of leprosy be healed in the leper. Then shall the priest command to take for him that is to be cleansed 2 living clean birds, and cedar wood, and scarlet, and hyssop. And the priest shall command to kill one of the birds in an earthen vessel over running water. As for the living bird, he shall take it, and the cedar wood, and the scarlet, and the hyssop, and shall dip them in the living bird in the blood of the bird that was killed over the running water. And he shall sprinkle upon him that it is to be cleansed from the leprosy 7 times, and shall pronounce him clean, and shall go the living bird into the open field. And he that is to be cleansed shall wash his hands, and shave off all his hair, and bathe himself in water, and he shall be clean. And after that he may come into the camp, but shall dwell outside the tent 7 days. And it shall be on the 7th day that he shall shave all his hair off his head, and his beard, and his eyebrows, even all the hair he shall shave off. And all he shall wash his clothes, and he shall bathe his flesh in water, and he shall be clean. And on the 8th day he shall take 2 he-lambs without blemish, and 1 ewe lamb of the first year without blemish, and 3/10 parts of an ephah of fine flour for a meal offering, mingled with oil, and 1 log of oil. And the priest shall cleanseth him, shall set the man that is to be cleansed, and those things before the Lord at the door of the tent of meeting. And the priest shall take 1 of the he-lambs, and offer him for a guilt offering, and the log of oil, and wave them for a wave offering before the Lord. Oh, that's interesting. And he shall kill the he-lamb in the place where they kill the sin offering and the burnt offering in the place of the sanctuary. For as the sin offering is the priest's, so is the guilt offering. It is most holy. And the priest shall take the blood of the guilt offering, and the priest shall put it upon the tip of the right ear of him that is to be cleansed, and upon the thumb of his right hand, and upon the great toe of his right foot. And the priest shall take off the log of oil, and pour it into the palm of his own left hand. And the priest shall dip his right finger in the oil that is in his left hand, and shall sprinkle of the oil with the finger 7 times before the Lord. And the rest of the oil that is in the hand shall the priest put upon the tip of the right ear of him that is to be cleansed, and upon the thumb of the right hand, and upon the great toe of the right foot, upon the blood of the guilt offering. And the rest of the oil that is the priest's hands he shall put upon the head of him that is to be cleansed, and the priest shall make atonement for him before the Lord. And the priest shall offer the sin offering, and make atonement for him that is to be cleansed because of his uncleanness. And afterward he shall kill the burnt offering. And the priest shall offer the burnt offering and the meal offering upon the altar, and the priest shall make atonement for him, and he shall be clean. And if he be poor, and his means suffice not, then he shall take 1 he-lamb for a guilt offering to be waved, to make atonement for him, and 1/10 part of an ephah of fine flour mingled with oil for a meal offering, and a log of oil, and 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, such as the means suffice for, and 1 shall be sin offering, and the other burnt offering. And the 8th day he shall bring them for his cleansing unto the priest, unto the door of the tent of the meeting before the Lord. And the priest shall take the lamb of the guilt offering and the log of oil, and the priest shall wave them for a wave offering before the Lord. And he shall kill the lamb of the guilt offering, and the priest shall take of the blood of the guilt offering, and put it upon the tip of the right ear of him that is to be cleansed, and upon the thumb of his right hand, and upon the great toe of his right foot. And the priest shall pour of the oil into the palm of his own left hand. And the priest shall sprinkle with his right finger some of the oil that is in his left hand 7 times before the Lord. And the priest shall put of the oil that is in his hand upon the tip of the right ear of him that is to be cleansed, and upon the thumb of the right hand, and upon the great toe of the right foot, upon the place of the blood of the guilt offering. And the rest of the oil that the priest's hand that is in the priest's hands he shall put upon the head of him that is to be cleansed, to make atonement for him before the Lord. And he shall offer 1 of the turtle doves or of the young pigeons, such as his means suffice for. Even such as the means suffice for, the one for a sin offering and the other for a burnt offering. With the meal offering, the other for a burnt offering with the meal offering. And the priest shall make atonement for him that is to be cleansed before the Lord. This is the law of him in whom is the plague of leprosy, whose means suffice not for that which pertaineth to his cleansing. And the Lord spoke unto Moses and unto Aaron, saying, When ye are come into the land of Canaan, which I give to you for a possession, and I put the plague of leprosy in a house of the land of your possession, then he that owneth the house shall come and tell the priest, saying, There seemeth to me to be as it were a plague in the house. And the priest shall command that they empty the house before the priest go in to see the plague, that all that is in the house be not made unclean. And afterward the priest shall go and see the house. And he shall look on the plague, and behold, if the plague be in the walls of the house with hollow streaks, greenish or reddish, and the appearance thereof be lower than the wall, then the priest shall go to the house, to the door of the house, and shut up the house 7 days. And the priest shall come again the 7th day, and shall look, and behold, if the plague be spread in the walls of the house, then the priest shall command that they take out the stones in which the plague is, and cast them into the unclean place without the city. And he shall cause the house to be scraped within round about, and they shall pour out the mortar that they scrape off without the city into an unclean place. And they shall take other stones and put them in the place of those stones, and he shall take other mortar and shall plaster the house. If the plague come again and break out into the house, after that the stones have been taken out, and after the house hath been scraped, and after it is plastered, then the priest shall come in and look, and behold, if the plague be spread in the house, it is a malignant
leprosy in the house, malignant, it is unclean. And he shall break down the house, the stones of it, and the timber thereof, and all the mortar of the house, and he shall carry them forth out of the city into an unclean place. Moreover, he that goeth in the house all the while that it is shut up shall be unclean until the even. And he that lieth in the house shall wash his clothes, and he that eateth in the house shall wash his clothes. And if the priest shall come in and look, and behold, the plague had not spread in the house, after the house was plastered, then the priest shall pronounce the house clean, because the plague is healed. And he shall take to cleanse the house 2 birds, and cedar wood, and scarlet, and hyssop. And he shall kill one of the birds in an unearthen vessel over running water. And he shall take the cedar wood, and the hyssop, and the scarlet, and the living bird, and dip them in the blood of the slain bird, and in the running water, and sprinkle the house 7 times. And he shall cleanse the house with the blood of the bird, and with running water, and with the living bird, and with the cedar wood, and with the hyssop, and with scarlet. But he shall let go of the living bird out of the city into the open field. So shall he make atonement for the house, and it shall be clean. This is the law for all manner of plague of leprosy, and for a skull, and for leprosy of a garment, and for a house, and for a rising, and for a scab, and for a bright spot, to teach when it is unclean and when it is clean. This is the law of leprosy.
Shall I take 15?
Sure.
Hashem spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and say to them, Any man who will have a discharge from his flesh, his discharge is contaminated. Thus shall be his contamination when he discharges, whether his flesh runs with his discharge, or it becomes stopped up because of his discharge. This is the contamination. Any bedding upon which the person with the discharge shall recline shall be contaminated. Any vessel upon which he will sit shall become contaminated. A person who will touch his bedding shall immerse his garments and immerse himself in the water, and he remains contaminated until the evening. Anyone who sits upon a vessel upon which the man with the discharge will sit shall immerse his garments and immerse himself in the water, and he remains contaminated until the evening. One who touches the flesh of the man with the discharge shall immerse his garments and immerse himself in the water, and he remains contaminated until evening. If the person with the discharge will sit upon a pure person, he shall immerse his garments and immerse himself in the water, and he remains contaminated until evening. Any riding equipment upon which the person with the discharge shall ride shall become contaminated, and whoever touches anything that will be beneath him shall become contaminated until the evening. And whosoever carries them shall immerse his garments and immerse himself in the water, and he remains contaminated until the evening. Whomever the man with the discharge touches without rinsed his hands in the water shall immerse his garments and immerse himself in the water, and he remains contaminated until evening. Pottery that the man with the discharge will touch shall be broken. Any wood utensils shall be rinsed in water. When the man with the discharge ceases his discharge, he shall count for himself 7 days from his cessation, immerse his garments and immerse his flesh in the spring water, and become purified. On the 8th day he shall make for himself 2 turtle doves and 2 young doves. He shall come before Hashem to the entrance of the tent of meeting and give them to the Kohen. The Kohen shall make them one as a sin offering and one as an elevation offering. Thus the Kohen shall provide the atonement. Thus the Kohen shall provide him atonement before Hashem from his discharge. The man from whom there is a discharge of semen shall immerse his entire flesh in the water and remain contaminated until evening. Any garment or anything of leather which upon there shall be semen shall be immersed in the water and remain contaminated until the evening. A woman with whom a man will have carnal relations, they shall immerse themselves in the water and remain contaminated until evening. When a woman has a discharge, her discharge from her flesh being blood, she shall be in her state of separation for a 7-day period, and anyone who touches her shall remain contaminated until the evening. Anything upon which she may recline during the state of separation shall become contaminated, and anything upon which she sits shall become contaminated. Anyone who touches her bleeding shall immerse his garments and immerse himself in the water, and he remains contaminated until the evening. Anyone who touches any utensil upon which she will sit shall immerse his garments and immerse himself in the water, and he remains contaminated until the evening. Or, if someone is upon the bedding or the utensil upon which she is sitting, when he touches it, he becomes contaminated until evening. If a man lies with her, and then if a man lies with her, then her state of separation will be upon him, and he becomes contaminated for a 7-day period. Any bedding upon which he may recline shall become contaminated. If a woman's blood flows for many days outside of her period of separation, or if she has a flow after her separation, all the days of her contaminated flow shall be like the days of her separation. She is contaminated. Any bedding on which she may lie throughout the days of her flow shall be to her like the bedding of her state of separation. Any vessel upon which she may sit shall become contaminated, like the contamination of her state of separation. Anyone who touches them shall become contaminated. He shall immerse his garments and immerse himself in the water, and he remains contaminated until evening. If she ceases her flow, she must count 7 days for herself, and afterwards she may be purified. On the 8th day she shall take for herself 2 turtle doves or 2 young doves. She shall bring them to the Kohen, to the entrance of the tent of meeting. The Kohen shall make one for a sin offering and one an elevation offering. The Kohen shall provide atonement for her before Hashem from her contaminating flow. You shall separate the children of Israel from their contamination. They shall not die as a result of their contamination if they contaminate my tabernacle that is among them. This is the law of the man with a discharge, from whom there is a seminal discharge through which he becomes contaminated, and concerning a woman who suffers through her separation, and concerning a person who has a flow, whether male or female, concerning a man who lies with a contaminated woman.
Wow.
Yeah. We'll get back to that.
What's the Hebrew word for contamination? Does anybody know?
Tsaras?
Now,
No?
what does that mean actually when you're saying contamination? You know, in the Semitic mindset.
Right. We were discussing that earlier in the earlier Parsha. It's a spiritual thing. Well, that's Saras. That's something different. Let me get you.
You see, Reuven, that's what I thought. He said it's not referring to being sick, because we have in the, and this is the thing a lot of times with languages, and that's why I think the Bible has been criticized, because they're going into the Western mindset, and unfortunately they don't really understand the language and the mindset of what the Bible is trying to convey and trying to express. That's why, in the sense that it's really to really go into the language itself while you're trying to read it and trying to really understand it. But it's just my opinion. I can't hear you, James.
I haven't said anything yet.
Oh, I thought you was talking. I'm
I
sorry.
was reading Reuven's just Reuven what Reuven wrote above. I guess you weren't here at the time. I read it earlier. I'll read it again here. Why is a woman unclean for an additional week if she gives birth? This is because the male child will be circumcised, thereby removing the uncleanliness. The terms Seith and Bahareth are the names of two major lesions, and the term Sapachath refers to the categories related to these two major lesions. And one, the major lesion, namely Bahareth, is wider than the other. We were talking about what's called leprosy, but it's actually a spiritual uncleanliness that becomes physically manifest on your body. It turns white, and the hair turns white. If two hairs within it turn white, it's saras. It's leprosy, not the leprosy we're thinking of. And Hermine brought up earlier, that, folks out in the desert, some dark folks, when a white spot appears, it shows.
Mm-hmm.
Atonement for sin requires that while erstwhile sinner purge himself of the moral flaw that caused his misdeeds, the underlying cause of slander and gossip, the sins that are punished by tsaras, is haughtiness, because it breeds the contempt for others that lets one talk about them callously. The Metzora's repentance entails a resolve to change himself, a change that is graphically symbolized by the following three items that accompany his offering. Slander is usually what's going to get you leprosy in the Bible. Biblical leprosy, if you want to look at it that way. Saras is what it's called.
Slander, okay.
Evil speech, lashon hara.
Oh, there's a lot of that going around. I hear so much of it. It does have an effect on you. Even if you're not meant to listen to it,
That kind of happened today in a hangout I was in during my split shift when I was off. I was in a hangout, and a girl brought up a thought experiment, really, and everyone got mad at her for bringing it up, and they started getting personal, and I said, hey, I had to kind of step in and say, I don't want to talk about her anymore. It was nuts. It was getting out of hand. And yeah, it was like 4 people at once. I was like, holy cow. Dude, she's just talking,
If it doesn't do anything when you're talking like that, if it doesn't do anything in your heart or in your mindset, and you're just talking, you're just unconscious of it, I actually feel really bad for people who actually go through life like that, at that moment. It's a horrible thing to even imagine that you could actually talk bad about someone and not even think about it. Like, oh, I said something wrong there, being conscious. And it's, and I think, while Hermine was reading this, and I was like, man, this is going way beyond my head, but, I'm trying to get something out of it in the sense that, the details and the consciousness of what you're doing says something, Because while she's reading it, I'm like, man, am I in a mainframe computer or something, man? This is way technical, man. It was extremely technical.
Yeah.
No, God willing, I'll read this again and try to get something more from it. But
it seems to me, if you're having it done, it would, blood on your big toe, blood on your finger, the oil is in the Cohen's left palm. You know, there's just it's technical. It's almost like the thought process of actually picturing it, having it done, does kind of.
It kind of reminds me a little bit about the Kabbalah, with the. But I digress. Next week, I'm going to try to go to the other Parsha, and and try to talk about Leviticus a little bit.
Cool.
And see if there's an esoteric understanding, because I think I understand things through esotericism, but then I end up understanding the exoteric part. I go backwards for some reason.
I really that was my approach to Torah. I approached it from a very esoteric point of view, and didn't really. It took me a long time to get a focus, on the raw meaning first, because everything I read, it always had other meanings. I was, there's always something greater to it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah,
of course. But then, yet again, to really understand it, you have to apply it, which is it's going to be the challenge. So how would you apply Leviticus, in your life, in your moments of your mundane exercises through the day,
Some of it can't be. Like the laws of leprosy, since there's no Kohen, you can't apply any of these laws right now anyway. But, for instance, like it speaks of a house gaining tsaras, leprosy. That only happens in Israel, in the land of Israel.
Mm-hmm.
It won't happen outside of it. And the leprosy of your clothing, if you will, the tsaras of clothing, wool, leather, that only happens to Jews. It doesn't happen to anybody else.
Say again, the leprosy of clothing, you said?
There's there's spoke of when a tsaras is that's the word for leprosy, the actual proper. Now, as Reuven put it, not Hansen's disease. It will appear on clothing in like a green tint.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember the exact, but it shows up, and if it just shows up out of nowhere, then it could definitely be leprosy. And if you can't get rid of it after you wash it and whatnot, you have to burn it, or pull the part out of it and burn it.
Mm-hmm.
It only happens with the Jewish people, they say.
That sucks.
Yeah, darn it.
Yeah, that sucks, man. Yeah, there was a Family Guy episode, and there was just like a skit where, the Jews are like, being whipped by the Egyptians, and one Jew goes to the other Jew, "Hey, after this, it'll be smooth sailing from here."
Wow.
Just trying to say it was going to be the hardest part. Try not to digress, but I actually not spoke to Prescott, but he actually typed to one of the hangouts I'm going to do on Saturday. I actually saw him typing. He's like, "Yeah, I'm going to try to make it." I was like, "Prescott, is that you?" He's like, "Yeah, I was hibernating for the winter." So.
All right.
Hopefully I could see him this Saturday. Well, he comes to my hangout on Saturday. I'm going to have a Saturday night.
Cool. It's all right. Those were the days in Noachide Nexus when Prescott would show and when Dougie would show. I'm glad you guys still show.
Yeah. I almost didn't because I've been extremely busy, but yeah, I made it. So
The,
now is Passover. It's over. Yeah, Passover. Well, it's done. Now you still keep reading from the Torah, or you start over, or you just
it's Yom Kippur that we
Yom
yeah,
Kippur.
start over.
And when is Yom Kippur?
Sometime in this year. I don't really know. It's usually September.
September. Okay.
They
Now
had
that changes, or it stays stagnant as always in September.
it's lunar.
It's lunar. Oh, so it changes. Okay.
Every 33 years they add a year. It's a sabbatical year.
Oh, okay.
That's what keeps it. That's their leap year, if you will. It's literally an extra month.
Okay. Every 2 or 3 years and a month plus change in days. Okay. Gotcha.
A month is added every 2 or 3 years? Really? I didn't think it happened that frequently. I thought it was okay. Or maybe I'm thinking sabbatical year would be. Okay.
Oh, cool.
So we've pretty much realized that male semen contaminates.
But why does it though? Why does
It's either
semen? Yeah, go ahead.
ejaculation completely, or if the other one, like the discharge we're talking now, is one where it wasn't worked for. That just happens. And I really can't find anything yet that mentions that.
Okay.
There's like the discharge of full-blown semen, and then there's the clear stuff.
Now, there's something that I wanted to talk about as far as the afterlife or in Judaism. Is it where you get new spiritual bodies like, the Christians do, or go to a certain heaven, or just merge with Hashem? Absolutely, the physical is what matters in Judaism. But as far as well, our bodies will be restored here on earth. Oh, okay.
After this, your soul will be absorbed by God after Earth.
Oh, it's the same concept within Sufism. Okay.
Just become one with the Creator. You're absorbed.
Yeah. We call it fana. There is a heaven, however, for the main objective is not really heaven. It's basically just reunification.
Yeah, Reuven posted it. It's the Garden of Eden will be restored.
Mm-hmm.
That is the world to come. Utopia.
Yeah, the whole fact that they say you come back is like you were there before. Yeah, it's just about returning. It's not about just going, but returning. You know, once you where you came from. Okay. Cool. So this part was Leviticus, right?
Leviticus 12 through 15:33. It's 2 parshas actually.
Okay.
Passover was last week.
Now, what is the whole objective of Leviticus?
Law.
Like, it's just law. Okay.
Priestly law. Priestly law, and then how the nation of priests will have to act. So it starts out with the, if you will, the highest, and then kind of delegates its way down through the entire nation.
Okay. Now, the purpose for the law for Gentiles, in a sense.
Say that one more
Yeah,
time.
for the purpose of the Gentiles, as far as Leviticus, that are outside from it.
There are some things speak to the children of Israel, and then they turn around and say any person. So sometimes, but like for instance, the tsaras, the leprosy, anybody could get that apparently,
Mm-hmm.
and they could go to a Kohen to get healed or to get purified or to get diagnosed anyway. But yeah, a lot of this doesn't actually necessarily apply, but you know, it's good to know. I mean, if you're going to church, you know, you probably are Catholics, you probably know what a deacon is, a subdeacon is. You might know why they wear what they do, but it doesn't necessarily apply to us. Although we were in here, we made it. The general populace of the earth did make it again in this week's parshas too. So.
Mm-hmm. Because I wonder when Christianity was spread in Europe, were the clerics and the monks, were they actually practicing these laws within the convent? Because they had access to the Old Testament, so they had to read it.
I don't know. That would be interesting to find out. Even the Pope covers his head with a yarmulke-looking thing, you know.
Exactly. You know, and I'm sure that there's things that they do that you know, the Greek Orthodox Church, you know, I'm guessing that they do stuff like this. You know, they follow Leviticus laws.
The Puritans, the people who came over here, the English settlers back in the day, they were heavy into the Old Testament as well. Very heavy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can see how, you know, the Amish will grow their beards and they take bits and parts. Yeah, so it's really interesting how Leviticus is actually being applied, and it seems more of an esoteric type of doctrine. However, I'm sure these things have their real deep meanings. That's why it kind of went over my head, because I can't just look at it literally at first. At first, when you look at it, yeah, very literal, but in each and every word that have a significant meaning and a significant connection through all other passages.
It's a cleansing. It's a self-cleansing. I mean, the priest makes you do it. When you come in with the Torah, the priest makes you go through this. And, yeah, whatever template it gives you, it's very technical.
Yeah, it's very conscious, too. It's a very conscious, and yeah, you know what? I have to be in the right state of mind to really go over this stuff. Maybe after Ramadan, when I'm good, I think I'm gonna have to start reading Leviticus.
It's detailed. It's very, very.
Yeah. Well, it's a very, very spiritual doctrine. So you got to be in the right state of mind, and I think this is what I'm getting from Leviticus. You get in a good state. Because right now, through my life, I'm hearing a lot of nonsense all over the place, and it's kind of affecting me in a way. So I gotta get some clarity.
I love you. My old girl coming in. She's seeing I'm all serious with the books out and stuff.
It's good. Oh, I rented the Interstellar, so I'm gonna watch that tonight.
Yeah, give us a review.
Yeah.
It looked good.
I heard it was really good. I heard it made some. I'll tell you right now, Xbox Fiend. I don't know if you know him. Made him cry. Yes. Yeah. He said it made him cry.
Wow.
So we'll see. Makes me cry. Okay, we're off air now. No. I was debating to actually say it, but I was like, screw it, I gotta tell you.
This is the Noachide's Nest. If you like what you see here, you can check out more videos at my page at Reuven Goldstein. And we do this every Thursday night on Google+. If you're interested, you like it, become a member of the Noachide B'nai Noach group here on Facebook, and to get you all the skivvy on when we get together and talk about this stuff and share commentary. Thank you for tuning in, and shalom.